Well, hello. I wanted to offer a couple tidbits about the bladder, and this is especially for you if you are a person, especially a woman, who feels like you have to pee all the time. And inevitably, you feel like you've had a little bit of liquid, and then suddenly you find yourself scooting to the bathroom as fast as you can, possibly worrying if you're not going to make it or not. So, first of all, the bladder is an organ that is designed to fill. Its mission on the planet is to fill with urine and be a holding tank for urine. Now, that sounds a little bit silly to say out loud because it seems really obvious, but so often, as women especially, we're in this kind of go, go, go mode, and we don't really allow our bladders to fill, right? And so a lot of times if we're going constantly or going just in case because you're going to go run a slew of errands and you're like, I'm not using those public bathrooms, or you're going to go on a hike with a friend and you're like, well, it's either use a toilet or pop a squat in the woods, which you're willing to do and inevitably you end up doing anyhow. But you're finding yourself going just in case because you're kind of like, making sure that your bladder is empty because you want to be able to feel comfortable and trust the fact that your bladder is empty or that you can hold your bladder long enough for the time that you need to. So the bladder is designed to fill, and it actually needs to fill in order to not experience urgency. So that go, go, go feeling actually counterintuitively actually requires you as the living, breathing human to start to implement practices, and they're very easy, by the way. Let me know if you have questions on this, but start to implement practices that allow the bladder to fill safely, so that way you can calmly walk to the bathroom when you need to, and you can trust your bladder, and or you don't feel like you have to have a map of all of the bathrooms around town when you're out running errands or getting to and from work. So the bladder itself, I always kind of describe this to patients and clients that I work with on a daily basis, is that if you think of a meter, the bladder itself has kind of four little checkpoints, four little fill checkpoints on that meter. And so number 4 over here in left field, that's like I'm sitting on an airplane and we're stuck on the tarmac. I can see the gate and oh my gosh, why are we not there? And you're starting to regret that second cup of coffee and then the water to wash it down. They've closed the bathrooms and now you're just like, I gotta get to the bathroom. And so that's where you can really feel your bladder filling and you're just like, oh no. And you finally hustle off the plane and you're like scooting through all of the traffic of people in the airport. And you finally sit down and you're just like, oh my gosh. And it feels like you could pee for 40 seconds. That's number 4. Obviously, we don't ever really prefer to wait that long, but that's a case in point that your bladder can hold a lot of urine, right? So number 1 is, this is a point where I tend to see people where people will, especially women, will feel their bladder fill. And, usually on an average day in an average bladder, it's like a barely noticeable sensation of like, oh, I had some liquid, I had some water, and like whatever, there's urine in there, but no need to go potty. The people that I tend to work with, that first signal is actually pretty punchy, and that first signal with even a little bit of urine in there tends to feel like, you gotta go and you gotta go now. It's like kind of this like the alarms are going off. And then, again, all too often we start to hit that first signal and then we pee, and it just becomes this kind of feedback loop. So again, in a normal functioning bladder, that first signal is like a nothing burger. It's like, I can feel it, no biggie, but plenty of time. Signal number 2 is kind of the same vibe. I can feel it, no biggie, no rush, but I will go potty in the next like 30 minutes to 40, whatever. So that's giving time for your bladder to fill. And you're kind of noticing these sensations along with that experience of like, oh, there's a little bit, no biggie. Oh, there's more, there's no rush. I'll be able to go potty eventually. And number 3 is kind of how I describe this like kind of gold standard checkpoint where you're like, I can definitely pee now. And, you don't feel any urgency of like, you gotta go and you gotta go now. So the signal matches the demand of what is actually in the bladder from a urine standpoint, and you calmly can walk to the bathroom and you sit down and you pee. And this is a urine stream at that kind of third signal mark that tends to last around 15 to 20 seconds worth. And so now you're never going to not be able to count how long you go pee. But essentially, it's kind of a nice reference point, a general reference point, by the way. It's not like your hard hard pressed to have to achieve 15 to 20 seconds. But like generally speaking, if you sit down to go potty and you pee for 15 to 20 seconds, you can pretty well feel confident that that bladder has filled up to that third point, and it's like, great, that was a great time to go potty. Versus if that first little signal is like really punchy and you're like running to the bathroom and you sit down, you go pee, and like 5 seconds of urine came out, where then you realize there's a signal mismatch with what the bladder is sending you versus you actually going potty. So and then obviously number 4, like there's no need to wait that long. But again, like it's good to know, because again, sometimes that first signal feels really punchy and you're so worried about getting there. And you're like, geez, really? Is that all I got in terms of my bladder being able to do its job? It really, all bladders have the potential to be able to fill to that magical little 3 kind of checkpoint, and even that 4 when you're, on a long road trip or on an on an airplane, or doing a full day of teaching, working on the hospital floors, like whatever you're doing in your daily life, that 4 is available. But again, not super ideal to have to wait all of that time. So there's kind of these ends of the spectrum where I see people, I work with women all day, every day, who are peeing constantly, or the kind of fewer population of women who are waiting way too long and possibly going into a more of a dehydrated state. So on that little note, that first little signal when it's really punchy and that causes a lot more urgency, or you just feel like you're peeing all the time, sometimes women in that case are very hydrated and they're just like, I just have a lot of liquid, in which case sometimes it's nice to kind of like peel back on like the big Stanley of water. Sometimes there's too much liquid in the bladder where it's kind of like, dude, give me a break. Other times women actually avoid drinking water if their bladder is just too punchy and too urgent and not trustworthy, because they're afraid they're going to leak. So we do want to watch kind of liquid intake and what type of liquid and timing and all that good stuff. So again, if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out. This is actually remarkable stuff to be able to kind of weave into your day. These practices, these ideas, these concepts make a big difference for bladders. Whether you find yourself on that kind of the urgency spectrum where you feel like you're peeing all the time, or you're way over on that other end of the spectrum where you're just like, I feel like I should be peeing more. So on that note, more to come on the bladder, but I hope this is helpful and you can kind of do a little bladder audit for yourself and discern, am I holding my bladder long enough? What's the signal that I'm feeling? Is my bladder too urgent? Is it sending these signals that I can actually work to rewire? Am I hydrated enough? Am I too hydrated? So do your own little audit, see what you think, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions.